أنا راح عندي صوت على فكرة just reconnected me ما أدري أخاف يصير هذا الوضع مرة ثانية.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Oman Association for Quality in Higher Education second webinar about utilizing data for informed decision making. Today, we are having the second webinar of the series of the Oman Association for Quality in Higher Education webinars arranged by the Events Planning and Management Committee. I'll quickly tell the protocol. We'll have all the mics muted and the presenter will present. After that, at the end of the webinar, we'll have a session for question and answers. You can send your questions through the chat or question box, and we'll ask the presenter at the end of the webinar. First, I would like to thank the Board of Director members, in both committees, the Corporate Identity and Media and Communication Committee and the Events Planning and Management Committee for their continuous support and efforts. I am Ala Al-Attili, member of the Oman Association for Quality in Higher Education, and I'll be moderating this webinar today. I'll give you a brief about the schedule today. We'll have two sessions. The first session is with Dr. Bushra. It will be for around 30 minutes. After that, we'll have Dr. Rima for again 30 minutes. I will start of data in higher education. I'll talk briefly about Dr. Bushra. Dr. Bushra Mubarak Al-Hsini. She's an assistant professor in the University of Technology and Applied Sciences, previously called the College of Education in Aristaq. Dr. Bushra has a PhD degree in material physics from Kent University in the UK, with teaching experience of around 16 years. During which she published several scientific papers about liquid crystals, optics, material structural properties, and amorphous materials fields. And she also participated in several national and international conferences and symposiums. Dr. Bushra had been the head of engineering department for 3 years in the College of Applied Sciences, Sohar. She was also an acting quality assurance coordinator for 6 years. She served as an assistant dean for academic affairs and scientific research for 2 years. Dr. Bushra is a representative of the Ministry of Higher Education, Scientific Research and Innovation in the Board of Trustees of the National University of Science and Technology. She's also an external examiner for physics program with OAQHE. I'll give the mic to you, Dr. Bushra.
Thank you, Dr. Ala. Thanks a lot for your Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank SORA for registering for this event. Thanks a lot for the Oman Association for the Quality in Higher Education for organizing this event, and thanks to Dr. Ala for your good introduction. Utilizing data for informed decision making in higher education. Today, we know that things are changing very rapidly. Data seems to be changing or increasing or coming continuously with a fast rate. We know that, I think all of you coming from a higher education sector, that all higher education sector have a long-standing commitment to improve their facilities, teaching, learning, retention, and graduation rates. And all of higher education institutions collecting a lot of data every day. We have now a huge database in our institution, but unfortunately, based on the research that just a few of higher education is using data, analyzing them, or using them in a systematic approach by means of when data is collected, it will be this should be done mindfully and strategically. Today, inshallah, I am going to tell you how to plan well for the data use. I'm going to talk about the most export I talked outline is what is why data is important and how it has evolved. Data and how it is used. Data analytics, I will concentrate a lot to focus about data analytics. Then I will introduce about one case study about student retention. Then some of the challenging and recommendations, some tips for successful data analysis. Today, or nowadays voice, or what we are hearing today, now science fiction is becoming as a science fact. We start hearing about Internet of Things, artificial intelligence. In fact, quantum computer fuel big data, and big data fuel Internet of Things. Internet of Things fuel artificial intelligence, which fuel the robotics. We started here about smart city. Today we want to talk about smart decision based on the data analytics. In fact, we are living in a digital world because we have 4 industrial resolutions. The first one characterized by the mechanical production, where the electricity or the electrical power characterizes the second industrial resolution. Automation for the third have a place in the third industrial resolution. Why although we read a lot in the books that the 4th industrial revolution is coming because the artificial intelligence, robotics, and so on. But the main reason who gave the 4th industrial revolution, who changed the world and needs also to change us, change our graduate attributes, even in our higher education sector, is the data, which is behind, in fact, or the main reason for the 1st industrial revolution. Why data is important and how it has evolved. First of all, we all as a higher education sectors always thinks about the investment in a physical resources, like invest on a data, equipments, buildings, and so on. But it is very rare to think about the investment on the data or the data analytics. Even for some university who's doing this, the analytics or the investment is not working out very well. On the other side as well, most of us collecting data long times ago and or reporting data. In fact, yes, that the accreditation and the assessment agency help us to enhance the culture of evidence in our institution. And we keep collecting data to get an accreditation. We all struggle with the requirements of OAQHE regarding to how to show that to OAQHE that I do have a good or effective, for example, academic integrity policy in place. How deal with this? But if we did, or if we implement the data analytics in a right way and take a decision based on this, I think that's if the accreditation will help us to enhance the culture of evidence. Using data analytics to take a decision will help us even to get the accreditation and to enhance the culture of evidence. It will also help us to identify challenging and opportunities when the opportunities are often a signal of changing time for the management, for the achievement by means of reducing costs. To close the achievement gap, to address a question or solve a problem, as we will see now, for a purpose of developing policy, student retention, or learning, and so on. How we can achieve all of this better decision. If we do all of the outcomes, we are as an institution, we always start or thinking about our strategic plan. If we can implement all of this, we can maximize our strategic outcomes. Why we want to maximize our strategic outcomes? Because we want to achieve student success, which is our main goal. Why? Because believe me, because of the technology today, it is really a competition. We need to protect our brand. We need to even to develop it to stay competitive. So I have already introduced what the different purpose of using data. Data comes in different categories as reported in this study. We know that as input, process, certification factory. We know that we have quantitative and qualitative data, as well as quantitative data analysis and qualitative data analysis. And the analysis of the quantitative data will help the development of how and why question that qualitative data can be answered better. However, it has been reported by Marsh and Ban that when we are taking a decision, it will not just affect by one types of the data, multiple data sources, it will affect the decision. For example, if we have an input data as a university cost, then we have a process data, which is can represent the quality of instructor, and they have output data, which student grades or in their exams, and certification data from teachers and opinions. So we cannot just depend on one source of data to take our decision. All of this, let us think now when we are talking about the data analytics, we just talking about analytics or having a result and taking the decision. We have to go beyond that to show that yes, the decision which have taken based on the data analytics, it is powerful or it is better, get with better achievement. Therefore, based on that, which has been reported, we have to use all several kinds of data. Big data, and it is characterized by 4 V's, but the development of the techniques and the use, the potential of the big data introduce another 2 V's. Big data, it is characterized by the exponential growth. So it is huge volume. It is really a huge variety. It is come as structured data, semi-structured or unstructured. Structured data, then we have a database about in row and column in Excel sheet or in a database. So it is well formatted one, and it is easier for the interpretation or analysis. While unstructured data, it is like we having videos, emails, images, figures, which is really sometimes it is difficult to interpret it. Semi-structured data, it is a combination of both data. Velocity, the speed at which big data is generated or flow, it is very high. Veracity, it is something to do with the reliability of our data, and we have to give really attention and care regarding to this point. The value, the 4th V, which has been introduced, which is to do with the business value of the data collected. Variability, the way in which the big data can be used and formatted. We can get a big data from machine, from social media, from transactional data. And I want to say that big data, it cannot be analyzed using our traditional method. No, there are some certain ways or techniques for analyzing the big data because of its characterization. Expectation of the big data, we expect the volume will keep increasing. The machine learning will keep changing the landscape of the big data. Data scientists will have a high demand who are responsible to coordinate all of this project about the data analytics. Ethical use of the data, privacy, or the security of this. That's why because of the growing of the data and the 4th industrial revolution, there will be a high demand for the data science things. I'm saying data by, it will not be, it is not a power, sorry, okay, by, it will not be, but we have to convert this data into the information and then into a result. We have to go beyond this, even based on our of our presentation today is to take a decision and even assess the effectiveness of this decision. Is how advanced would we say that the data analytics capability in our institution. Data analytics, someone has reported that the analytics is the use of the data using statistical analysis, predictive method to gain insight with the variables under study and get a desired result. Also, someone define it as a structural approach of processing data, dissemination the results, and taking an action. Briefly, I can say to you that data analytics, it is a science of processing data to get a result based on a purpose and take an action. I will go in details of the data analytics, and I will introduce, I want to introduce the challenge at the from here, where I will introduce at the end, but I will talk about some barriers which has been reported by study that some people, a lot of people in our institution, they are thinking that the data analytics, it is like an expensive tools or endeavor for the institution, or it is a wasting of time. Why? Because they have a wrong culture regarding to this. They are thinking about the data analytics like an expense rather than thinking about the data analytics like an invest. How to overcome this and changing their culture about the data analytics is to invest in the analytical professional or in the analytics professionals, or we can say that we have to invest in people over tools. This will not be enough to convince people to change their minds and culture. We need to assess our use of the data. That's why when we all go and talked about the assessments, the analytics steps or stages, I will use the assessment cycle which has been reported, because we must assess this. Before I go to the data analytics stage, it is good to see the differences between the data mining and data analysis. Data mining is a systematic approach for discovering pattern. It helps to understand the collected data better, while the data analysis, it is even go beyond that for the extracting information, transformation, visualization, so on. Analytical software tools, we are followed now by the digitalization, mobilization, and automation. A lot of tools, variables, we cannot be familiar with all of them. I will not spend time on them because this will be covered, inshallah, by 2 points. The effective use of the data analysis is depending on the right culture or the cultural change in our institution, as much as it is depending on the tools that reported or used by the institution. Here, I want to share this interesting results which has been reported by this study here that done research to check the different sides about the data analytics and the effectiveness challenging in education. They found that 40% of people, they think that data analytics is important for some departments. The interesting things is here with the result. They ask them, okay, for those university who's using data analytics, which area in your institution got the most benefits from the data analytics? And most of the people, they answer that understanding student demographic and behavior optimized. Unfortunately, just two things that the data analytics will help for reducing the administrative cost, faculty performance, although reducing cost, it is the main analytics. I do believe that, okay, and some also do believe that we have these issues here regarding that that higher education couldn't decrease the administrative cost because of the culture in the leaders. If the leaders do believe that data analytics is a priority and it should be a part of our strategic plan, that's what I emphasizes on. The cost, it can be less if we think it is a part of our strategic plan. That's why we have to think always and link things with our strategies, policies. Even when we set our policies in our institution in higher education, we must set the list of data which need to be collected for these policies. Another reason why the data analytics doesn't help institution to reduce the cost, I think also because of the result reported by the same study. We have several types of the data collecting by the higher education institution. We have frozen data, we have translational data, we have survey data, and we have the automatic data, which is system-generated behavior, for example, site visit and so on. The research has found that most of the data available in the university warehouse is coming from the frozen data. That's why we couldn't here reduce the cost. Even now, the higher education institution, they have another types of data, which is social data that's coming from the social media. And when they ask them about the concern about growing the use of the analytics in the higher education, most of them, they say the affordability, misuse of the data is the most challenge we can say. And also one of the challenge which has been reported by them is higher education unfortunately doesn't know how to use data to make decision. I like the way, I will go here for more details about the data analytics, but I want to introduce this model, which I like it so much, reported by IMA about the steps of data analytics. They summarize it in 4 steps. Some of them, it is backward looking. 2 of them is forward looking. We will start data analytics, for example, with the problems, what's happened, descriptive, then diagnostic, why did it happen? Then we will go to forward looking and optimization, predictive, and we will ask what will happen, a predictive model during the analysis and so on. And then perspective to say, how should I respond to all of this? Okay, now we are talking, or the main issues today for us is to talk about the data analytics. And we say that it is beyond just reporting or collecting data. Before you start the first step, which you think it is the first step of collecting data, the first step of data analytics is collecting data. There is 1 step which come before. Please spend time to do this. Think about the purpose. Don't ask for collecting data without a purpose. Set your main goal. When you are thinking about this, think about your mission and strategic plan in your institution. Think more and think about which data I should include. What is my internal data? Maybe it can be connected from continuous quality improvement in my external data. Who is my internal stakeholder who's related to these issues, my external stakeholder. Think about how old is my data. Do I need the data for a year or last 2 years? Do I need to do a survey? Think about variables or factors. We don't want to come at the end and we discover that maybe we forgot to talk about certain factors which affect the issues too much. Think about indicators, KPIs. The limitation of the data is one of the critical points that you need to think about it, because this will affect also the limitation of the decision which will be taken by you at the end. Think about the reliability of the data, because it will affect all story or all cycle. All of this, if you do it at the beginning, before you go to look into the data, will help you 3 methods. First, it will help you how to plan well for the data collection, the whole plan, how to think strategically and analytically about which data matters. Again, the third point, it will help you to define what is the best source in which I have to go and collect the data, assuming the data is available in quality assurance offices, with registration center, and so on. Here is the college assessment cycle, and part of this assessment cycle is the data analytics process. Here is the point which I have to start it, plan and identify the outcomes. The case study, which I will introduce it in 3 seconds, it will mention about the reduction in the retention rate in the institution. I have to set, I have an issues about the reduction in the retention rate of the institution. What I want to do is that I want to improve it by 5%, 6%. Set your goal clearly. Ask yourself question. which is related to the issues which you want to get the answer. Map your strategic initiatives to a data. Think about your opportunities, ask your question. This will help you to identify which key area to target. Then after we decided the whole story here and the whole plan, we will come to the collecting data. Collecting data, use your own method, what you want to do, your tools, but you have to keep in your mind that data should be cleaned and error-free. What I mean by the data should be cleaned here, I have set the list of the factor which needs to be considered. Here I should remove any data that is not related to what I am aiming or what with my problems or my issues. Also, in this stage here, you can think about clustering the data or classification of the data. This is all simplify the data analysis, which will come in this step using any different techniques or tools depending on what you want to do. The important things in data analytics, okay? First, the partnership. It is really, really important to think about the partnerships in doing this. Depends of the peoples that should be involved, which I have set the list of them here, okay? Then who will play the rules here? Okay, we have some peoples do believe that institution, they need to have 2 offices for that. Some of them call it institutional research office and information technology office for technical support. The research institutional research office will deal with collecting data, will coordinate all story. It is like call it data scientist, but that doesn't mean we cannot do the analytics if we don't have institutional research offices or information technology. It is all depends on our structure. Some of them, they just employ a data scientist and they will help they will ask the IT staff to help them in doing this. Here we have to think also about the integration of the data, visualization of the data. This people have, the author has reported sharing result here, but first of all, we have to think about show the result. When we are thinking about showing the result, we have to keep in our mind that how to present the result in a clear way and which can be understood very well when the people is reading them before you go and share the result. It is not just sharing the result here as much as the conservation, the discussion to get more interpretation about the result that we have received here. Please don't jump from this stage into identify or taking decision and implement it, because in that case you will question and challenge the value of the data collection in your institution, and we don't want to do this. We want to build the right culture, a positive attitude with the staff toward doing each steps here. Here we need to be careful about the access to the data. I think the institution, they have to introduce an ethical policies or codes of practice to protect or to keep the data privacy here. So the main of dissemination, the result is for discussion, more interpretation about the result. Then we have to go and decide, take our decision and say, okay, this is the change which need to be done and implemented. The leader should play the important role here. If I stop here, it seems that still I am not sure that I am taking better decision based on data. There is one who has introduced a book called "We Cannot Improve at Scale. We Can Not Measure It." You have to go and measure the implementation of the change which has happened. All of these steps will introduce a data, and this will introduce a data, the assessment process. The assessment, it should be linked directly with our main goals, in which we started our analytics. Because if we don't go to these steps, there is one Omani girl who has discussed her master thesis last week. I read it in Twitter. She was, her title thesis was regarding to the factor in affecting the decision making based on the data analytics, but this was in a oil and gas sector. But what I mean here that several factors can act on it and affect any stage here. That's why if we assess the impact of change, we will guarantee, yes, we have taken the effective decision in these issues or problems or for developing any things. How well we can do this process, it depends on the maturity of practice in our institution. We believe that no one can argue about that establishing powerful and successful data analytics programs in our institution. It will take time. It will take time because we are learning day by day. So the important thing is to create right culture, have a systematic set of modification in various activities to be conducted and assessed. And the important is the partnership. Now I have introduced it here.
You have 5 more minutes.
Oh my God. Okay, I have talked here about the retention rate. I have the goals is the improve the retention rate by 10%. I have to, as I say, we have to set a strategic question. For example, I have said which batches of students show the most retention reduction, which share of the students the most reduction happen, how to decrease the drop output, who should involve. Data collection, I will collect several types of data and I will set the source of the data. I will do the analysis using SPS, focus groups, interview, whatever it is. Then I will get a result. We have assuming that we have found that this issues about the retention rate is happening for foundation year, year 1, year 2. I have an issues regarding to the language issues, gender issues, credit hours, culture, specialization issues, and homesick issues with the year 1. I have to share the result with the university leaders, parents, maybe a head of department, advisor. Then to take a decision, maybe the decision will come is to create a perfect foundation year experience, develop some retention strategy, review study plan. This is for year 1. Since I have classified here based on the result, this issues is different from different year. So that's mean I have to take the decision which need to be taken for year 1 or foundation difference for year 2 or and so on. Then I have to assess my change, the implementation, which step which I've decided, for example, also reviewing the academic advising policy and so on. Then I will have an outcomes which represent a new data which need data analytics. The challenging that we may facing with the data analytics commitment, always the leaders found difficult to establish a commitment to the staff, expertise and knowledge, data scientists. We have different programs with different variables, factor of events, different types of teacher and student, ethical use of the data, storage and processing, quality of the data because of the steps. As a recommendation, we should emphasize, the leaders should emphasize the important partnership, communication, commitment. Leaders should invest in people over tools. All the policies in our education should have a list of data to be collected. If it is worth doing, it is worth documented. Emphasize the importance of technology and data infrastructure. Always ask strategic question. This recommendation, it has been reported by this reference here. We always think about benchmarking our strategic plan, policies, and so on. But also for the data analytics, I do agree that we bench to get the institution current standing in the analytics, set goals for the future analytics success, and measure the institution progress. Here are some of the references which I consider them. At the end, I want to say that nowadays the change is exponential. So you will decide as a higher education, you will decide, are you driving the change or are you being driven by it? We need even to few years coming, we need to be beyond our technology and data to reach human ideas or insight. What I don't know how the change will change the world or change the higher education sector, but I am sure that we can work together always to get a strong performance in the higher education sector in Oman, inshallah. And thank you. I hope I am on time. Thank you, Dr. Ala.
Thank you, Dr. Bushra, for your informative presentation. We'll get back to you in the question and answer session. Now, I would like to introduce our second presenter, Dr. Rima Mansour Al-Zajjali. She will talk about utilizing the data in decision-making at times of crisis. Let me first introduce Dr. Rima. She is the Dean of Gulf College, and she is the Deputy Chair for the Board of Directors of Oman Academic Accreditation Authority. Dr. Rima Zajjali has a PhD degree in Applied Linguistics from the University of Lancaster in the UK. She has been the Dean of Gulf College, Oman since May 2018. Prior to that, she had a long career as a senior language lecturer and a quality assurance specialist at Sultan Qaboos University for almost 20 years, during which she served as Deputy Director for Academic Affairs and Community Service at the Quality Assurance Office for 5 years, and the Deputy Director for Assessment at the Language Center. She also served as an external reviewer with the OAQHE from 2010 to 2020 and participated as a panel member in a number of institutional and GFP quality audits, as well as standard assessment. She was appointed as a member of the OAQHE in the Board of Directors in January 2020, and she is currently the Deputy Chair of the Board of Directors there. Dr. Rima is a certified KPI trainer and certified performance improvement professional by the KPI Institute. She also served as a co-opted and elected member in the Executive Committee of the Oman Quality Network in Higher Education, which is now our association, Oman Association for Quality in Higher Education. Dr. Rima, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Ms. Ala, and thank you very much for the opportunity that you have given me to address the sector today. I hope to be able to build a little bit on what Dr. Bushra has shared with us today and bring it down to sort of a more hands-on experience kind of level. So I'd like to talk about, one second, please. Okay. Can you all see my screen already?
Yes.
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 All right. So. Okay. So I'll just give a very brief introduction that links or relates to what Dr. Bushra shared with us. The focus being data-driven decision making, which is also known as DDDM, which refers basically to the practice of basing strategic decisions on the analysis of data rather than purely on intuition or gut feeling or tradition and so on. Obviously, there is nothing wrong with sometimes using your intuition in making decisions, but we would like to make decision-making more powerful by utilizing data. It's been reported, and I would say also from experience, we can tell that data-driven decision-making increases productivity, and it's often correlated with higher return on assets, equity, higher return on equity, asset utilization, and market value as well. Business decisions have been recently made a little bit more automated based on data. So for example, you may see as an example Netflix and for example Amazon recommendations that are set to the customers. On what basis am I given, for example, different recommendations than any other person who's watching Netflix, for instance? It's all based on decision making that's been now computerized. Okay. Data decision making also goes by many names. Dr. Bushra has covered some of these. She talked about big data, data analytics, business intelligence, diagnostics, analytics, data analysis, and data modeling. Can you all hear me properly, Ala?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. As the legendary engineer we all know, Edward Deming puts it, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So we're trying to utilize data in order to make informed decisions. And this has been a trend in multiple areas, not only in education, but my focus today is going to be on giving you an example from the field of higher education in terms of utilizing data in making decisions, especially at times of crisis. The focus of my talk today is going to be on how we handled or how we managed data and made data or utilized data to support decision making under the circumstances related to COVID-19 situation. I'd like to share with you, before I go into sharing our own experience, this model about creating, excuse me, creating a data-driven work culture. Very often, an institution goes through various stages until it really creates a data-driven culture. Some institutions may be in data denial sort of stage. So the organization starts with an active distrust of data and does not actually use it. And some institutions may be indifferent to the data they have. They have the data, but they're not really bothered whether it's been collected or not. Sometimes an institution can be aware of the data is collected, but it's mainly used for monitoring. For example, data about staff appraisal and so on. It's collected. Data about whether students are satisfied with our services or not is collected, but nothing much is really being done with it. No decisions are made. The loop is not being closed in terms of improvement. So the institution is data aware, but not doing much with it. I personally believe that perhaps in the college, in Gulf College, we are more into the phase 4 at the moment, which is being data informed. And I'd like to give you examples of how data informed we have been. This is a phase in which the organization uses data selectively to aid decision making. The last phase ultimately is being data informed, in which actually all the decisions you make are based on the data. The data plays a key role in all major strategic decisions within an institution. My talk that relates to Gulf College in particular, I'd like to share with you how we planned for the semester, the previous semester under the COVID-19 circumstances, how we monitored our progress under these circumstances by utilizing different sources and different types of data. I'll talk also about the methods and sources of data we utilized, how this data helped us in enhancing the quality of teaching, learning, and student buy-in with all the decisions we had to make as a response to the situation. I'll talk about what data is being utilized in making improvements for the next year, and finally, how we're hoping to further integrate the data and utilize it for even making improvements to the next semester. So I'll give you some examples of how we utilize data in various stages. In order to make the idea clearer, I thought of talking about it in terms of the PDCA model: planning, doing, checking, and acting on whatever data we receive. In the planning phase, this was the phase before the Supreme Committee decided to suspend classes. So we started preparing or planning for the semester before the actual decision of the Supreme Committee. And the idea was that we wanted to be prepared for what may come. So in order to prepare for that, we started combining some collective and quantitative data we had a sort of think tank meeting. This was joint meeting between the college board, the academic board, the health and safety committee, as well as the risk management committee. So we all had a joint committee in order to prepare for the scenario of classes being suspended and what we are going to do about it. We ensured that students are involved with us as much as possible in this phase. So we organized meetings between us and representatives of the Student Advisory Council. Obviously, our partner universities, Cardiff Metropolitan University and Staffordshire University, were also actively involved in this thinking process with us, or planning process. At this phase as well, we also started thinking of the resources. What if, at that point, we were still thinking, what if the Supreme Committee decides to suspend classes? Do we have the resources to go fully online, and so on? So that was mostly a planning phase. I will talk later on about the decisions, the major decisions that were made in each stage, and based on the types or sources of data that I'll be covering in this slide. So in the sort of doing or the do phase, this is the first week of when the decision, right after the decision was made. The decision was made on the 14th of March to suspend classes, as you all know. So we started because we thought that's it, we're ready, we're going to go with classes from the 15th of March. However, when during the first week of that phase, we kept collecting more qualitative and quantitative data. We kept an eye on students' reactions to our approach to delivering classes through Moodle. At that point, we made sure that our marketing team keeps an eye on social media, students' reactions, and we also collected student and staff feedback. And we continued with the joint meetings, obviously, with the partner universities, meetings with the students in which students were represented. We kept asking them, the representatives of the student council, how do you see things going? You know, and they kept an eye on student feedback for us as well. During this phase also, during the first week, we also utilized a sort of homemade simple dashboard developed by our Center for Academic Support that helped us maintain the level of student engagement with classes during that week. And later on, we also utilized the same dashboard for monitoring students' you know, engagement and attending classes and so on. Following that phase, the checking phase. So we utilized we continued working with student representation and assessing the performance and so on. One second, please. Okay. So we also, during this phase, we decided to suspend the classes, and I'll tell you what was the reason and the major decisions behind it in a minute. We utilized other sources of data. At this phase, we used more quantitative data. We did an analysis of the student profile because many of the students were complaining about issues of, you know, weak connectivity and so on, not being able to access the Moodle files from their hometowns, and that they are from remote areas in Oman and so on. So we started looking more in depth into the student profile. Where do they come from? And in fact, we realized that the majority of the students were from Muscat and you know, nearby areas, Muscat and Barka, for example. So we thought we can go ahead and you know, give the students perhaps more time to adjust and to be prepared, and for the college as well to think of a more interactive approach rather than Moodle. We also, during this phase, administered a survey to the students, an intensive survey through the help of the Student Advisory Council. About 1,400 students responded to the survey, in which we were basically considering what options would they prefer after the suspension of 4 weeks. And the students, the majority of them reported that they would rather have a sort of a break of the 4 to 5 weeks in which they adjust themselves and have more, you know, be more prepared for online learning. And they also showed their interest in a more interactive approach to learning. So that was the next phase later on when we decided on that. In the ACT phase, in a way, we looked at adjustments and monitoring. This is after we implemented, we went back to the semester, resumed the semester. We continued using the dashboard, but this time the dashboard was also helping us in maintaining students' engagement and following up with them. For example, after 1 week of classes, whoever did not attend the classes, we actually called them by phone one by one and inquired how we can help and support them. We continued our discussions with the Student Advisory Council, the partner universities. We also collected faculty feedback and another student survey at this stage as well. This particular survey this time was actually about using Microsoft Teams, because we decided to switch from using Moodle into a more synchronous mode of learning through Microsoft Teams. So again, we asked specific questions. So this gave us some more quantitative data into how students are feeling about or reacting to classes being offered to them through Microsoft Teams. And as you can see, this may give you a sense that actually we had very good and positive reaction from students at this phase. So what were the major decisions that we made at this stage? For each stage, I'd like to go over the major decisions we made. 1 second. Right. So during the pre-planning, based on the data that we had and based on the assessment of the resources and structure that we had, we planned for, to begin with, we thought we will go with Moodle as our option as soon as suspension of classes is imposed on us. We decided to go for online office hours and academic advising as well, and we committed ourselves to continuously engaging with our relevant stakeholders, being the partner universities or our own students, and obviously to keep an eye on all the decisions of the Supreme Committee. In the second phase, based on the data we had in that particular phase, that particular week, we offered the classes, pre-recorded classes in Moodle. And then we sensed that the students were not satisfied. They were still not settled. They're still not accustomed to the whole idea of going online or remote learning. Many of them complained of not having the right devices. Some of our teachers did not have the right devices at home as well. So some of the decisions we made during that week was that we need to shift into a more engaging approach to teaching and learning. In addition, perhaps, to Moodle, we will complement Moodle with something more, or Moodle actually is going to complement that live model. And so we decided perhaps it's best, and we have also consulted obviously our board of trustees, partner universities, and the students, as I said, and we decided to postpone the semester by 4 weeks until we are more prepared for a more live mode of teaching and learning. And then we start during those 4 weeks when we did not have classes, we actually utilized those 4 weeks for making again the major decisions and looking into the options and alternatives. So the alternative we decided to set on was using Microsoft Teams, so that we offer a more interactive mode of learning. At the same time, we utilized those 4 weeks also for intensive trial of the Microsoft Teams platform with our lecturers and with our students. So our lecturers were actually running actual live classes with their students, just dummy classes, just for the sake of familiarizing themselves and the students with Microsoft Teams during that period. So it was really a good, I believe it was a good move. It gave us time to adjust, and it gave our students time to learn more about using Microsoft Teams. In the last phase, we continued working, and then we went back to the semester. We used Microsoft Teams. At this phase, having already piloted sort of Microsoft Teams, our teachers started, or lecturers started coming up with some their own initiatives as to what tips and advice to give their students about how to behave when they use Microsoft Teams or when they are doing attending online classes. Obviously, it's all new to all of us. So our teachers started working on developing some sort of classroom protocols. We also started sharing tips. We had meetings with our teachers, and they all shared their ideas about teaching through Microsoft Teams and how they can improve it further, how they can ensure that students don't simply log in and then disappear, how can they make it, the classroom more engaging and ensure that students are paying attention to the end. Because we had, as I said, committed to enhancing the engagement with our stakeholders, at this stage we thought it was a good idea to send our students continuously through social media and through email a series of letters from the dean. Whenever we made major decisions, whenever new variables came up, we listed all the decisions and the rationale behind the decision. We also responded to some of the feedback we were getting from our students in social media and in the surveys by sending them a series of letters from the dean that were published, as I said, and sent to them in email. Because we sense that our teachers were, I'm sure many institutions face the same thing. The teachers were quite overwhelmed with the stress of handling online mode of learning fully 100%, not being able to go to the office, not seeing each other. So we started planning some more virtual gatherings with our staff. This is an event we, for example, planned and did during the holy month of Ramadan, and we called it virtual coffee chat. It was, like informal, fun gathering, just so that the teachers sort of de-stress and share their experiences, and it went quite well. We also, excuse me. All right. So I'll go back to the slide. 1 second, sorry. We also did a number of events with our students as well. We had two gatherings, similar social informal gatherings, one with all our students and another one particularly with our students with hearing impairment. Both events were well attended and really appreciated by our students. We had a number of letters from the vice chancellors of the two partner universities, which were also shared with our students. During this phase, we also worked on revising our KPIs. We realized that some of our KPIs in the operational plan may not be, we may not be able to collect the same type and volume of data that we would have had we not had this situation of COVID-19. So we kind of adjusted and revised our KPIs and our risk register. At this phase, we also started, because of the feedback we got from students and teachers about having issues, sometimes technical issues, we introduced an online IT help desk through chat and call in our website. So what are we going to do next? Or now that the semester is over, what other sources and types of data we're going to utilize in order to ensure that we do better next semester? We are now in the process of, because we just finished our last examination board a couple of days ago, so our team is now in the process of more analysis of student data in terms of the pass and fail rates compared to previous semesters, student progression, number of mitigating circumstances cases, number of any unfair academic practice cases, a number of non-submissions, results classification. We are looking into all of this data in order to learn more from the experience and see how we can improve on it for next semester. Towards the end of the semester, myself and the Deputy Dean for Academic Affairs and Research carried out a series of focus group discussions with our students from the Center for Foundation Studies and the two faculties, as well as we are now planning to do a similar thing with our postgraduate students. This was, again, an opportunity for the students to reflect on the entire semester, including teaching and assessment. And we took advice and tips from them and suggestions from them as how they would like us to improve our services to them in the coming semester. And overall, again, I think it was a very useful and constructive discussion with our students. we are now going to do or redo the student satisfaction survey. We did it towards the second week of the semester. We are now planning to do it again towards the end to get more data on that. Next week, we will be having an intensive reflective review of the entire semester. We're going to have a series of discussions with our academic staff, with our administrative staff, and we are going to discuss themes as to teaching, assessment, student support services, communication with stakeholders, and so on, so that we again get this feedback to refine and finalize our plan for next semester, again based on data, qualitative and quantitative from multiple sources. We are hoping to be able to, we have already more or less actually throughout the semester, we have been benchmarking our decisions, benchmarking our actions towards those of our two partner universities, and I'm happy to say that we were perfectly aligned with them. We were making decisions, we were introducing procedures, and whenever we presented to them in our continuous regular meetings with them, every 2 weeks we had a meeting with both partners, they would always say, this is exactly what we are doing. You are very well aligned with what we are doing in the UK. So that was quite reassuring as well. We hope to be able, for all of us collectively, perhaps through the association, to do some sort of process benchmarking and data benchmarking with the rest of the sector to see how we can further improve, to learn from each other and to further improve for next semester. Now, also one of the things that we did towards maybe halfway of the semester to ensure that our efforts in the college are more integrated, more coordinated, and that we get many more people engaged with us in decision making. So instead of only the college board and the academic board perhaps making the decisions, we formed a steering committee, and we developed our business continuity plan in order to be better prepared for next semester. The objectives of the business continuity plan, as you can see, were to ensure the quality and integrity of academic provision next semester, to maintain a positive relationship with our students, to maintain close relationship also with all our stakeholders, and also to ensure the well-being, obviously, of our students and our staff next semester. And so we are prepared for whatever scenario that may go, but most likely the blended learning approach, as you all know. So in order to, as I said, to ensure that many more staff members, whether admin or academic, and many more students are involved with us in decision making, we formed 8 working groups. As you can see them here, the security and campus entry working group, health and safety, student enrollment, teaching and learning, testing and assessment, student experience, staff well-being, and professional development, and stakeholder communication. So in each of these 8 working groups, we have representation from staff as well as representation from students. So students are now actively engaged in planning, and have been actually actively engaged in not only reflecting on what the previous semester was like, but also actively planning with us for next semester. And we ensured, throughout the process, because we were continuously engaging with our students through the Student Advisory Council and responding even to their feedback on social media through letters from the Dean, for example, we witnessed really the student buy-in, and we witnessed the student satisfaction becoming better and better from the very first day when we decided to go with Moodle, for example. So with all of these efforts, we are also planning a couple of things that we will be working on to even utilize data more effectively next semester. So we are going to, our ERP system in the college is relatively new, and we ensured during the pandemic that more and more features of the ERP system are now fully activated. For example, the feature of online academic advising was fully running in the previous semester because students are basically learning remotely. all the issues, all the systems of admission, registration, fees collection have been automated fully. We were, before the semester, we were kind of in the piloting stage. We have now successfully implemented all of these features and functions in our ERP, and so we are hoping that actually we will be more able to utilize data, more selective, more quantitative data in the next semester. Instead of teachers coming with their own individual efforts of developing protocols for classroom use and so on, we are now in the process of developing proper guidelines for both our teachers and our students on using Microsoft Teams as a tool for remote learning. We are shooting short videos for the students as well and the teachers, again, on further training them. We are going to be giving more. We have already given series actually of Microsoft using on training sessions for our staff on using Microsoft Teams, but we are going to do more of that during this just before the beginning of the semester. We are looking into options of online examination invigilation, and also with our partner universities, we're going to have a session with them that will share more of their experiences of handling COVID-19 with us. I hope I managed to sort of link and build on what, a little bit at least, on what Dr. Bushra said about how we managed to use data and multiple sources of data and multiple methods of collecting data in making decisions about the last semester. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rima. Exactly on time. Thanks for your very informative presentation. In a few minutes, we'll just have the questions. If you have any questions for either presenter. Before we go to the questions, the chairperson of the Oman Association for Quality in Higher Education, I would like to invite him to just give a 2-minute speech. Dr. Taqi, if you want to join us, please.
Well, thank you very much. I would like to thank the two presenters. I must say I was very happy to see the presentation. And I'm very glad to see now, in the past few years ago, we had to bring people from outside Oman to share their experiences. Now, I think within the sector, we have a lot of good experiences. And I'm sure that, you know, working together, we can really make this. OAQHE, our association, is from the sector to the sector. So please encourage everyone to go to our website. Very soon we're going to activate the discussion dashboard, where we're going to talk about different experiences in the 9 standards. Like, I know in Oman, most of the higher education institutions are really implementing the 8th, not the 9th one, because the 9th one has to do with the PhDs and whatever. But I think we have a lot of good experience within the sector. And I think it's the time really for us to create platforms. And we have developed our website. We're trying to go with the latest development of the technology. And this is a call. I beg everyone in the higher education sector, please, let's share the good practices. Because to be honest, I think we have a lot here in Oman to share, not within Oman, also share it in the region and worldwide. Again, I would like to thank every individual who really give us the support to do and achieve what we are achieving. Do remember, please, we are a non-profit organization. Our revenue comes from the fees and the membership. So sometimes we ask the sector to do a lot for us, and we're not paying, you know. So again, we see that social responsibility. And I'm sure all higher education institutions have that vocabulary. Thank you again. And if there's anything you think we can improve to the sector, you can always write to any of us board members. Our emails are on the website, and we will try our best to serve the sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Taqi. And as Dr. Taqi said, you can go to the website, which is oaqhe.org.om. oaqhe.org.om. Now I will go to the question and answer session. The first question is for Dr. Bushra. It's from Amal Al-Morfadi. She is asking, what is your definition for retention rate, Dr. Bushra? Yeah, Dr. Bushra, the mic, you have to unmute your mic.
Yes, Doctora, what is your the question, please?
What is your definition for retention rate?
The retention rate, it is regarding to the students who drop out from the university. It might happen for different reasons, because the student GPA or the situation, or because of several reasons.
Okay.
So the retention is too much the institution can keep their students, and therefore enhancing the graduation rate, therefore, as a result of increasing the retention rate.
Thank you. The next one is for the association. Is there any way to download the presentation? Yes, the presentation along with the recording will be available on the association website. I mentioned it, oaqhe.org.om. This is the next question. The next question is received by email, actually, to Dr. Rima. Can I ask what additional human resources Gulf College had to secure to undertake what you are describing, if any? So what additional human resources Gulf College had to secure to undertake what Dr. Rima is describing, if any? That is from Dr. Lee.
Okay. We did not have to actually look for additional human resources specifically for this stage. Having said that, in the past 2 years, we were fortunate enough to already hire some additional staff members. For example, a director of marketing and corporate identity. We hired also someone with experience in with student advisory councils. He was previously himself as a student, the chair of a student advisory council. We have people with, we have now a team who's working with our ERP system. So we already had, over the past 2 years, hired also a deputy dean for academic affairs with an extensive background in research and computers and IT. So before the pandemic, we had already, alhamdulillah, really introduced some very qualified and experienced staff members who joined the team of Gulf College. And we are basically now seeing the results of having hired all of these qualified people. So particularly for the pandemic period, we did not need any external support. We managed it ourselves.
Thank you, Dr. Rima. The next question is by Alexander Barrios. Thank you for the presentations. The question is, what is your stand regarding whose courses learning outcomes that will not be attained during remote teaching? Again, what is your stand regarding those courses learning outcomes that will not be attained during remote teaching?
Is this question for me or Dr. Bushra?
Well, he didn't mention, so anyone can.
Okay, obviously when we went for alternative assessment, we tried our best to do it as carefully as possible. We were continuously, getting feedback from our partner universities, and obviously getting the approval from the BOT. We tried to, as much as possible, to map whatever learning outcomes that were intended to these alternative assessments. To be honest, we are, in a way, we are fortunate in the college that we don't have many modules that are very much purely practical in nature, so they were not really impossible to map and use or assess through alternative learning. So, for example, for the computing modules, we managed to turn some of the assignments into case studies. We supported the students downloading the relevant software and so on, and that's why we introduced IT service, technical service, or the helpline was also helpful for these students. But overall, the nature of the programs we are offering did not really hinder us from or stop us from more or less mapping our learning outcomes from face-to-face to the online mode.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
I will just, Dr. I will just emphasize what has been reported by Dr. Rima. I think the mapping will have or represent the effective role on this to map even each question, not only each assessment types or test or quizzes or lab exams or something, but we have to do the mapping even with each questions in the exams or assessment tools in general.
Okay. Question for Dr. Bushra about again the retention rate from Amal Al-Murfadi. The retention rate, should it be calculated each semester or by the end of the year?
Some university, they are collecting each at the end of each semester, and some of them, I think most of them, they are calculating it at the end of the year to have a better view, and because of the system and of the study, I mean, in the university. So what I know that most of the university, they are considering or measuring it at the end of the year, but there is no issue of measuring it, I mean, each semester even.
Okay, thank you. Question by Zainar Harmadi to Dr. Rima. What can be done for low attendance of students in online classes?
Right. Okay. This is an interesting question because you see that the nature of the student population in Gulf College is that we have students who are, for example, sponsored by the ministry and so on. So they are like not full-time students. I mean, they're fully committed. They don't have a job or anything. But we also have a considerable group of students who have jobs in the morning and attend classes later in the day. What we noticed that actually when we shifted to the online learning is that attendance rate increased significantly. We saw really a good increase in attendance rate in online classes. And in all those focus discussions we had in the surveys and so on, in the discussions with the Student Advisory Council, many of the members of the Student Advisory Council themselves are from this group. They're working students who attend classes in the afternoon. In fact, they shared with us that online learning made it much easier for them to not to miss any classes, because normally they would finish their work at 2:30 and then they have to be in the college by 3:30 and start attending their classes until 8:30 p.m. Being able to attend classes from the comfort of their homes made it much easier. So we really saw an improvement in student attendance. In terms of ensuring, initially when we first started the semester, there were complaints from the teachers that some students log in and then leave the computer and they can't tell whether they're actually attending or not. So some small teaching tips that we shared with them were, for example, utilizing the chat box or the poll, for example, throwing a question unexpectedly at a random point during the lesson to see students being actually engaged and attending, and they're not just switching their computers on. And that actually helped. First couple of weeks, we had an issue with student engagement slightly, but actually, I think as students settled and they managed to get the right resources, perhaps we did not have an issue. We had better student attendance the last semester than ever.
Thank you, Doctora. Again, there's a question for you. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Did your academic team have to revise syllabus to suit online mode, especially since you had 4 weeks of class suspension by pandemic?
Yeah, the syllabus itself was not really revised in a sense. It's the way we were going to deliver. So the teaching itself, we continuously give the teachers advice to, not to just simply switch on the computer and give a PowerPoint lecture. So they were advised to try to make the classes as much engaging as possible. But the syllabus itself, remember, we are working in academic affiliation with another university, with two UK universities. The syllabus itself remained as it was, but it's the methodology of teaching and delivering the curriculum that was adjusted to the situation and the circumstances.
Thank you, Doctor. A question to Dr. Bushra about, and at the same time to the association. So I think it's to Dr. Taqi also. It's about, again, the retention. Are there efforts taken by the OAQHE to coordinate these approaches among HEIs? That is by Tahir Nasser. Again, he's saying, example, retention rates, as every HEI defined it differently. So, did you get the question? Okay.
Okay. If you want me to start, I think this is very, very important question. And let me tell you, being one of the external auditors here in Oman and outside Oman, most of the audits they ask, and sometimes people within the same organization, they have different definitions of what is retention or whatever, the topic. So I think the external auditors, they get really little bit suspicious if they say if you don't have, common understanding within the organization, how you get to a conclusion. I think this is one of the things which we would like to focus on as the association. Recently, we have launched our website, and there is discussion rooms and for the all 9 standards. And one of the things what we're going to do, we will try to come up and standardize. We cannot tell the higher education what to do and how they read, their reports and their vocabularies, but we will try to standardize. There is a lot of good documents in terms of, the vocabulary, retention, progression rates, stuff, whatever. And we will try to bring the international standards into the platform. We are not recommending all the institutes to use it, but I think that will create a good debate and good questions within the higher education sector. And if we can, make the very close understanding what is the vocabulary means and how it gets calculated, I think that will be a great contribution to the whole sector. But yes, I totally agree with that question. I have seen it myself in Oman, outside Oman. Within one organization, you ask this question to 3 different people and you get 3 different answers.
Thank you, Doctor. The next question. Many thanks for all. Mr. Nabil from Al-Buraymi University. My question is to Dr. Arima. How can we make our assessment tools more valid and hence can give reliable results during distance learning?
During, sorry?
During distance learning.
Distance learning. Well, it depends again on what is exactly the type of assessment you're using. So it depends on the nature of the course and the learning outcomes you're trying to achieve. I understand that some of the learning outcomes are definitely better achieved through face-to-face assessment. And, for example, and sometimes a little change or variation in the conditions that are set in an exam really affect and impact on its validity and reliability. I'll give you an example of, for example, a listening test. In one of the modules in the foundation, there was discussion about the listening test and how we can do it. and whether we should be giving it to the students, for example, to do it themselves, and then they upload the grades and so on. But one of the factors that was intensively discussed was the fact that if you give the students that and you say to them, for example, you have 1 hour to respond to this listening test, what happens is that the students, for example, in a normal face-to-face setting, when you have conducted this exam, they may be allowed to listen to each audio or recording of the listening script twice, let's say. That's an exam condition you have set. But when you give them that additional or extra time to do it themselves, the same students may listen to the same recording 5, 6, 7 times. So this way, you have actually affected the validity of the test and also the reliability of the results, because my score, if I was limited to only listening to the text twice, is going to be, of course, very different from the score I would obtain if I had an endless number of attempts to listen to the test. So it's the way you design the test itself, and asking yourself all of these critical questions. What variables am I able to control and make sure that they are the same as in paper-based, face-to-face kind of setting, and the same, are we going to be affecting those variables when the test is administered online? Look, I'm not going to claim that we managed to 100% maintain the same level of validity and reliability of all the assessments, because this was a very unprecedented, unique situation to all of us, and it was a learning experience to all of us. That's why I said that later on, when we reflected on the results of certain exams, for instance, like this particular exam, why were the students scoring much higher in this particular end-of-level listening exam than usual in the foundation? We realized that because the students had control over how many times they listened to it. So as a learning point, we were considering other or alternatives ways of doing that in the future or in the next semester if we have to deliver the same test online. We now have the luxury of deciding which tests we are going to do on campus and which tests we can do online based on whatever we have learned from the experience. Back in the previous semester, last semester, we did not have the option of going on campus. Now we have the option of blended learning, blended assessment, which means we may be able to ask some of our students for those tests for which the reliability and validity we feel were somewhat compromised because they were delivered remotely. Priority is now given to them being delivered on campus.
Thank you, Dr. The next question is by Dr. Ammar Al-Balushi to Dr. Rima and Dr. Bushra. How can we overcome the challenges of applying data analytics techniques in higher education institutions? What are the main KPIs used in monitoring and evaluating how well staff are performing and engagement of students? Dr. Bushra, are you there? Yeah, I think she
Yes,
has.
Dr.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Ala, I heard the half of the question. Can you just repeat it?
Yeah. How can we overcome the challenges of applying data analytics techniques in higher education institution? What are the main KPIs used in monitoring and evaluating how well staff are performing and engagement of students?
I think for the enhancing the analytics professional skills for the staff, we need to invest on this at the beginning before we have even the institution go and buy more tools by enhancing training, sharing experience between staff, doing even running some workshop, simulation of analyzing data, even and all data, and then we can set numbers of KPIs based on analyzing some of the data, the past data that are valuable in the institution, and assess our outcomes in comparison to the setting goals or I think this can be, or also the compression doing between several focus group who's working on the analysis at the same times, dealing with the same data, or maybe we can use different source of data. That's what I think we can do.
Thanks a lot. We are running out of time. We have many questions. I will go. There's a question to, okay, by Dr. Lina George. What was the pattern of online assessment made for students? What was the pattern of online assessment made for students? Anyone can answer. It's not mentioned to who. And at the same time, there's another related question to Dr. Rima, this one by Asif Ali. Can you please explain about online exam invigilation software?
Okay. The online examination software, to be honest, is an initiative that the Deputy Dean for Academic Affairs is handling, and we are just in the phase of exploring what software we may utilize for that. Having said that, we will be giving priority as much as possible to conducting exams on campus for exams which we feel their sort of validity, purity of the exam could be compromised. The other question, I'm not sure what she means by patterns of assessment.
Yeah, it's not
types of assessment.
It's not mentioned.
Do you hear me, Ala?
Yeah, I am hearing you. It's not mentioned any details. So I'll go to the next question so that we can cover as many. There is a question. Is it acceptable to make changes in KPIs in the scenario of COVID-19? This is by Amina Muhammad Ali. Is it acceptable to make changes in KPIs in the scenario of COVID-19? الفويس الصوت ما طالع. No voice.
Look,
yes.
We have to be realistic about monitoring our KPIs. So, why not? I think we can adjust instead of actually, sticking to the same KPIs. You can't hear me?
Yeah, it's disconnecting, but now we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes. Now it's cutting.
Yeah.
That was okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can't hear me?
Now we can hear you. Now, yes.
Okay, sorry, I don't.
It's cutting.
Okay, so in terms of the KPIs, I was saying personally, I think it's better to admit that some of the KPIs are bound to be affected by the circumstances. Okay, no? All right.
Okay.
Okay, I think. Okay. So I was saying in terms of the KPI. Okay, go on to Dr. Taqi. Go on to Prof. Taqi, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Dr. Taqi, yeah. We have a question for you.
Yeah, before you ask me a question, There were two very interesting questions, which I just want to add few things. And to be honest, I'm part of a lot of networks, and this question is coming up. And usually the question is, when it comes to online assessments, do we have any good examples where we can benchmark within the country? This is not to promote Gulf College, but if you go to the Person Examination Center, it's basically, IELTS center, which is computer based. If you go to, and if you want to see how they do online assessment for the 4 skills, I'm sure Dr. Arima or Gulf College will be more than delighted to see. They made a lot of investments, and it's accepted exams in the whole world, sort of thing. Recently, it has been also accepted by the government of UK for the visa and whatever purposes. So this is one of the examples, Gulf College. I'm sure Sultan Qaboos University, I'm sure German University, without calling the name of the universities, I'm sure we have some good experiences. So that's when it comes to the assessment. Also, when it comes to the assessments of, for example, for the medical, the hospital, Sultan Qaboos Hospital, the university hospital, have some good experiences. And also, if you go to some of the universities, especially the UK, because I work with the UK universities, there is a lot of great examples how they can assess, online in, learning outcomes, which is really requires lab or practices. This is one. The other question really, which was very interesting, about the KPIs, and whether we should monitor the students' progression every semester or every year. And I think there, what I would like to say, I would ask, what is the purpose of your KPI? Some people, they say, okay, it's really to tick the box and satisfy OAAA that we have our KPIs. But if you want to monitor and utilize the KPI in performing the results, then my advice will be do it every semester, use the leading KPIs, because those will help you in corrective action before you say, okay, retention rate is only 50% or whatever. So it depends how you look, because you see, those sort of the schools and those sort of vocabularies goes very, very fast. So those were the two things which I wanted to highlight. And I'm sure if you have any questions which you don't have an answer, you can write to us as association, and we'll do our best to see where we can get you the best answer. Yeah, we don't promise you we'll give you all the answers, but at least we can guide you where you can get good answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. I think we are running.
You can ask me the other question if you want now.
Okay, we already are running out of time. The question is there any specific standard and criteria to assess the distance learning experience in Oman? That one was by Mr. Nabil Ben Omar to Dr. Taqi.
Yeah, I think, you see, this was really a new experience, but what we have done, if you go back to our previous workshop, there was three probably views on this: Ministry of Higher Education view, Sultan Qaboos University view, and Muscat University view. If you want the videos or what was discussed, we will send you. It should be on our website. But I think, there's a lot of things to learn and build on. If you want like international views, there was also one video which I have sent for an event which was organized by the British Council, and that was worldwide. If you don't have it, you can write to me through the association, and we'll send you the 3 videos. Obviously, you will have to invest some time, carefully listen to the video and what was discussed.
Okay, thank you. Almost one last question by Alexander Darius. What are alternative approaches if ever the internet connection is down while doing the remote teaching, or network is crashed down for a long period of time? Do we have standby approaches for this issue? For anyone?
Yeah, I think this is $1 million question. Okay, But let me give you experience what happened in Iraq. You know, Iraq, internet is disaster, especially with all the politics they're going through. They utilize the TV to make all the teaching online, and people even in the villages were able to see the TVs. And I think we are urging the internet providers. There has been letters from various government agencies to improve the services. So improving the services is one. The second thing, I was also part of a team yesterday actually in one higher education, and it was, we have a problem. And the question was, who are the providers? We have Omantel, we have Ooredoo, and there's the third one. So perhaps having more than one line, that could be an option till the new 5G comes. Yeah, but TV is one of the options which can be utilized. Second thing, broadcasting. Broadcasting is good option, even if the students miss, you know, that particular time. They should get given the opportunity to listen, or even utilizing recording through YouTube sort of things. Contingency is always a good thing to focus on.
Thank you, Doctor. I know we are running out of time. I'm just trying to answer and cover all the questions, if you don't mind. Okay, it seems the last question by Kana Chamalini. She is asking, how did you prepare your students and staff for the online learning in case it was a novel experience for them? How did the system cope and adapt with the change process? Also to anyone.
For us, as I said, because we did not have classes for those 4 weeks, we did the proper pilot. We actually contacted the students and did some sort of pilot classes with them. So that was those 4 weeks. We gave them intensive training. They took classes, dummy classes, shorter classes, obviously, during those 4 weeks. So whatever issues they had, the teachers supported them and our IT team supported them. And after that, actually the students very much appreciated our use of Microsoft Teams, and they were happy with it, and we did not have any major issues following that.
Okay, thanks a lot. I hope that I covered all the questions. I have many. It's not like a question. It's thanks for all the informative presentations. So I cannot read all, but I already conveyed that to you. They are thanking you both, Dr. Bushra, Dr. Rima, and Dr. Taqi, for the presentation and answering the question. There is a comment from Dr. Ali Al-Badi. I am glad that Dr. Bushra said about the master thesis mentioned in her presentation, as it is for his student, Abir Al-Farasi, and the title is Exploring the Factors Impacting the Adoption of Big Data Analytics for Data-Driven Decision-Making in the Oil and Gas Industry. That's only a comment, and thanking you all. I hope that I covered all the questions. Thank you all, and thanks for attending. Within the next 2 months, almost within 1 to 2 months, we'll have our next webinar, inshallah. We'll communicate the title of the webinar. I am having a lot of comments, that's why I cannot concentrate, but we'll contact with everyone very soon. Thanks for attending, and if you have anything, you can send email to the association's email and through the website for the association. Thanks again. Thanks for all the members of the board of directors, for the OAQHE, for their efforts again and again, and thanks for Dr. Rima and Dr. Bushra for their informative presentation, and we'll hope that we will have very soon activities all the time. Thanks.
Okay, one final thing, Ala. I think one person we should thank also. I would like to thank you on behalf of the sector and the association for being the master of ceremony today. I know there's a few people also behind the scene. They are with us, they're monitoring, they've been working on this quite hard. So I would like to thank every individual, either from the association or from the sector, who given us the help and made these events possible. Thank you again.
Thanks. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.